Envision a warm summer's day. Children are outside playing, dancing, just being children while enjoying the warmth of the sun. Their laughter is crisp in the air. This is the innocence that they all share. No race, no religion, no social or economic status, just children being children. Sadly, that's not the reality that they grow up to live. So as the children are outside playing, one of them is injured, and the injured child cries, "Mama!" They need help. Mothers are there and they're looking on, and in that split second, in that cry for help, what do these mothers do? How do we respond? Does the child's age matter, or their size? What about the color of their skin, or the fact that maybe they're not biologically your child? How do we answer? This is Real Life Unplugged, and I'm Jae Hers.
This is Real Life Unplugged, and I'm Jae Hers. Come with me on this journey to find the way through the truth to the light.
Hey everybody, thank you so much for joining us today on Real Life Unplugged. I'm your girl Jae Hers, and I'm so excited about today's show. I'm joined today by some amazing women who I have to brag, I know personally, I've known throughout my life, in different aspects and walks of life, and I'm really excited about what we're about to do today. So we're here to start and have a conversation that many of us have had in private. Now we're going to have this conversation publicly with you. Before we begin, I just want to share with everyone that we are in no way saying this is the end-all, end-all, be-all of what this conversation, this dialogue is or should be. We are not saying that we're here to come up with the concrete resolution, but what we are here to do is to provide a sense of normalizing this conversation, bringing awareness that it needs to happen. And most importantly, we're here to share and listen to, as well as learn from one another. So without any further ado, ladies and gentlemen, I want to welcome my guest. I am joined today by Mrs. Camille Evans, who is, I'm going to try to sum it up. I was going through her bio and I was just I knew some things. I was like, oh, that's so cool. That's so cool. Camille is a wife. She is a mother of two. She's actually been married for 15 years. She has two sons, both teenagers. She is definitely an educator, works with youth, has actually been for the past, I want to say 9 years now, right? In her current role. You said what?
Going into my 9th year.
Going into her 9th year. So, and I'm going to let her kind of share a little bit about her work with everybody. Go ahead, Camille. Welcome to Real Life Unplugged.
Thank you. Hello, everybody. I am, like she said, I'm a mom. My two boys, Malachi is 13 and Caleb is 11. I've been a high school counselor, now going into my 9th year. And I've been married for 15 years. As a school counselor, I meet with I have 9 through 12, so I get them coming in and I see them on their way out. And my job is to guide and direct them along their life's pathway and listen and help solve any issues that may come across.
Awesome. Thank you. Welcome, Camille. Also, I have Mrs. Emily Phillips. Hey, Emily. Welcome to Real Life Unplugged.
Thank you.
And Emily, Emily is, sometimes at work you need somebody that's going to pray with you, and she is no shame, and I love it. Love it. So Emily, I'm going to go ahead and just, Emily, her I thought her bio was really super sweet and modest. So she is definitely a mother. She is a wife. She is a Christ-following wife, and I love that framing that she gave us. She's also a guardian and an ad litem for 3 children, which I would love for you to share with us a little bit more about what that is and how that role maybe even ties into how we're going to have this conversation.
Oh, sure, I'm glad to. Being a guardian ad litem is a volunteer court advocate for children who are in the system, who are being taken care of by the state while their families are trying to heal and ultimately come back together is the hope. But the guardian ad litem is, I'd call it the mama bear for those kids, because when children come in to care, the state's care, all of a sudden a lot of adults show up and the focus can come off the kids and what they need. And so that's where I come in. I testify in court on their behalf. And I also just get to tell them how special they are and hopefully bring a bright part to their life.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Emily. So I have our other guest and panelists who actually started off our first episode of Mama with me. Dear friend, Miss Adriana Speed. Hey, Adriana.
Hi.
How are you?
I am good. How are you?
I am well. Welcome back.
Thank you. I'm glad to be here.
Yes, ma'am. You got this thing kicked off. You started us. We were talking about this, and yes, we had our conversation. You really said some things that we came to a point of where we need to have this conversation. We definitely need to have this dialogue. So, right. I'm gonna go ahead and we're gonna jump right into the conversation. Excuse me, ladies. One of the things, and I think that's kind of where I want to start, is first, what is the conversation and how do we begin? I'll go ahead and start with you, Camille.
When you say conversation in regards to youth, can you be a little bit more specific so I can go in?
Absolutely. So so in Mama, we had our very first episode. We had the conversation. We started the episode really mothers reaching out, responding to the cry for help when George Floyd cried out for his mother. After that, it was kind of like a call on a rallying of mothers to a call for justice. And in this, our country is still dealing with some of the racial tensions. We are raising children, like you have your sons, Emily has her daughters. We have different backgrounds from different ethnicities. And one of the things that we determined was the conversation needed to be had. So it's like, how do we have this conversation? Where do we begin so that as the mothers, because we're the ones that are gearing up the future, how do we move from there? How do we get started?
For me, I live in a predominantly white neighborhood, and I have 2 brown boys, 13 and 11. So the conversation for me was heartbreaking, in a sense, because they don't see color. They just play with their friends and they just do, boy stuff, right? But my son is 13, so he's no longer looked at as cute and innocent anymore. And that broke my heart. And so it was hard, honest conversations about, unfortunately, how some people view them. I don't think it's anything that they have personally experienced themselves. But it was just an important conversation that we had to have in regarding when people see you, they only see your color. They don't see your character. They don't care about your personality. They just look at your color, and honestly, sometimes they just don't like you. And how does that make you feel? Let's talk about that. Let's work through that. So it was bittersweet, honestly, for me.
Adriana?
Yes, I think for me, the conversation started, my 2 boys are 6 and 4. And so we haven't had a lot of those hard conversations yet because they're so small. But for me, it started with my friends. So my friends who are not people of color, they wanted to kind of know, what was that like? You know, sometimes people are removed from a situation or a subject if they don't know somebody personally that's been through things like that. So for me, it just started with telling, you know, my experiences as, you know, being a person of color in America, and, you know, experiences that I seen, you know, my brothers or my uncles or cousins go through, and relating that, but then also allowing them to hear what I'm saying and educate themselves. So for me, it started with the people around me, because again, my kids are little, but that, you know, equally important for not just people of color to be aware, but for everybody to be aware. So we had to have those hard conversations that, you know, weren't always pleasant or comfortable, but much needed. And that's kind of how I found myself the last few months.
Thank you. And Emily?
For me, it's taken place in several different venues. I've had different conversations with my daughter, my oldest, who is 7, as well as between my husband and me, because thankfully he's a safe place I can vent. But then also with my children that I'm guardian over, because they are Black. And, you know, I don't know how that's impacting them, other than all 3 of them are already quite traumatized just from their own experiences. But then now this was just, it felt like another layer of trauma for them. And they range in age. So it's, you know, like with talking with any child, you got to keep it, you know, appropriate to their age, but also make sure you're getting your point across. So for them, talking to them, it was more, I don't really have advice I can give. I've not experienced what they've experienced, but just telling them that they are loved and I'm here and ready to listen no matter how that comes out. And then with my own daughter, my oldest, she doesn't see color. Like Camille was saying, she has friends of all backgrounds, and I love that. But I wanted to just, I guess, dip her toes into the fact that there are lots of people, unfortunately, that matters, that color makes a difference in a bad way. And that when she sees situations, maybe at school, on the playground, wherever, where she sees someone being unkind to another, do what she can, you know, stand up, and don't let that kind of behavior slide, because that's not how we're called to live.
Thank you for that. And I love how you ladies, it's like everyone, it sounds like the conversation is being framed similarly when we're having the conversation with the children. One of the things that I want to ask, and Adriana, you alluded to that, so if you can even talk about this a little bit more, the conversation that I want us to have is as the adults, right? We're the ones that are parenting. We're the ones that are, you know, advocating. And you mentioned that you had to have some conversations that were hard conversations. Can you talk to me a little bit more about that?
Yeah, I mean, I have had friends, and again, sometimes you just don't know how people think, or you think you know how people think, but then a situation happens and it totally changes everything, be it good or bad. So I've had both of those experiences. But some of the beautiful things that have happened, where I've had friends who, way back when, you know, when Colin Kaepernick first started to kneel as his protest, that didn't understand that and thought that was just crazy. And then, you know, fast forward till a couple of months ago, I had some people reach out and say, I did not always think that, you know, the Black Lives Matter, whether it was the movement, or for me, I say I focus on literal Black lives. It doesn't have to be the movement behind it, but actual lives. They're like, I didn't always understand what you were saying, and you kind of were always vocal, but they didn't, before that video, it was hard for them to kind of correlate everything that was going on. And so I've had some people say, I thought differently a couple of months ago, but now I want to be enlightened. And also, you know, I was raised a certain way, and my parents or my grandparents saw this, and so I had been doing X, Y, Z, and I thought it was fine. You know, I really didn't think anything of it. But now having these conversations with you, I understand that I need to change some of my behavior as well, or the way that I think as well. And I think that's some of the beautiful conversations that have come out, where people were like, you know what, I did, you know, and when you can honestly say, I thought a different way. It wasn't always right, I didn't always see your point of view, but I want to get it now. So starting the conversation and then having them sort of address their own behavior, their own personality and things that have happened and say, you know, I want to change this because I want to stand with you. I want to understand you. So now I have to check myself. So those are kind of the conversations I've been having.
That's good.
Awesome. Have either of you ladies had any kind of these type conversations in your own circles, Camille or Emily?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
So share with me a little bit about what that experience or those experiences were like for you. I know you work in a school, you're dealing with teenagers, and that whole spectrum, I can but imagine.
Yes. Well, this situation, because we were in the middle of a pandemic, so everyone was at home, but we were still having meetings, our Google Meet meetings 3 times a week with my colleagues. So for me as an African American, I mean, those incidents happened back to back to back. So honestly, I was not in the mood for any Zoom. And I did not want to be on camera, but you know, you have to show up. And so one of my colleagues was like, well, what is everybody's thoughts about what's going on? And, I was like, be quiet, like, don't say anything. Cause you know, at that moment, I don't know if I necessarily have really dealt with all the emotion. You still have to show up to work. Right. And she was like, no, I really want to know your viewpoint. So I told it raw, real, straight, no chaser. And, they were kind of a little torn back by it. They were like, wait a minute, that's not true. That can't happen. That's not. And I'm like, it was the conversation of saying, like, some of my colleagues got it right away. They immediately said, when everything happened, I thought about you, Camille. I thought about your husband and your 2 boys. And I thought about what that may feel like for you. This one colleague in particular didn't, because she couldn't get outside of herself and see somebody else's life and situation. And so I had to help them understand what was going on for me and the people in my community outside of you and in your people in your community, because I'm the only African American counselor in my office. And so it was a real honest, hard conversation that had to be had.
Yeah.
So, and at that moment, the colleague that didn't get it, she later then emailed me after she took time and said, I'm sorry, I didn't understand. I wasn't hearing you. Now I do. And I apologize. So it was good.
That's good.
Wow. And Emily?
You know, again, with the situation of being, you know, home and working virtually, you know, those like hallway water cooler conversations don't happen as much. And I imagine that that's been like a blessing and a curse, you know, depending. For me, this was, I'd say, the first real wake up call of like, after watching the news and just sobbing, talking to my husband, like, I've got to do something. Like, I need you to help me figure out what's the thing I can do, because this is overwhelming what's going on. And I know I can't take on an entire system, but what's I need something to do. And, you know, and he just told me, you know, lean into your guardian ad litem. That's a tangible, you know, those are 3 tangible lives, and the lives outside them and around them, that I can work to bring healing. And then just, keep educating myself.
Okay. All right. Wow. Thank you for sharing that. You actually said something just now, educating yourself. And that's one of the things, that's where I want us to go. And we're going to probably kind of have to break and come back to it. But I really want to know, when you said to keep educating yourself, and Camille and Adriana, you mentioned about educating people. I want you to give me a bit more detail, because this is where, for some people, this conversation is not happening. And it's like, in the back of your mind, you realize you need to have it, but I don't know how to have it. You know, I don't know how to talk to my Black and brown friends or my Caucasian friends, or, you know, because it's not just, our communities are different in so many different ways, yet we have so many things that we can come to common ground. And again, we want to have that give and take. So can you share with me, as far as you saying, you know, to educate yourself, what that looks like for you, what those steps are even that you have taken to this point.
For me, I always start with the word. That is just where I start. You know, what does God have to say about, and then fill in the blank. And you know, it's not as simple. You have to know the word to know where to look in the word. You know, it's not like an encyclopedia where you can look up your topic and go straight to it. And you know, of course, overwhelming truth is God is love, and it's not a love that's specific to one or another, or not one and not this other. That it starts with love, and He calls us to, you know, that we are image bearers of His. We all are, and I keep going back to that again and again and again. That that everyone is due just kindness and love because they're created in love. And then I started looking at those, you know, uncomfortable parts of history that you don't learn in school, and you know, reading about the names that previously had just been names for me, because that wasn't a topic either in my home or in my school. And the hardest was I watched a video about Emmett Till. And that, especially now as a mom, but yeah, so but also knowing not to look away when it's hard. You know, that's, if anything, that's the time to lean in. And to ask the tough questions, and to use the voice and the platform you have, even if it's not, you know, some grand illustrious stage. You know, you still have your voice, and if you can just get one person listening to consider or reconsider, that's a good place to start.
Absolutely.
That's awesome. Wow. Thank you, Emily. Thank you for that. I love that. Not looking away. And for so often that's been the in the communities with people of color, it's like, you know, I think Adriana and I had that conversation where it's like, you know, I've had friends, let's say, you know, like, you're my Black friend, but when something happens in a whole, you look away. I actually saw something someone posted today, who she posted this on Instagram. She went voting in Nashville or something, and a guy like jumped off his boat and swam to hers and was like, "You cut me in line," and he's like in her face, like berating her and calling her all these racial slurs and just really horrible. It's on tape, right? They're, you know, cell phone age. It's all being recorded. And, you know, she governed herself. I was really impressed because I don't know. And I am a woman of faith. I have to be real, you know, like she was like, you know, she's like, "You will leave." And, you know, she's just like speaking. She was like, I was speaking to that spirit, and you could hear the authority, but she wasn't like rude to him. She said something which I was just like, well, where are the people to help her? And then people were coming up to her after the fact saying, "Oh, I would have pushed him off the boat. Oh, you shouldn't have stood there for that." And then the people, the country club was like, "Oh, we're going to give you free gas." You looked away. And like you said, you have a platform, you have an opportunity to do something, to use your voice, and it's not being done. That's one of the things that I'm hoping that with us starting again, we're not here with an answer in the full spectrum, but having the conversation, because looking away sometimes is just as bad as the perpetrator of whatever that wrong and that ill is, you know? So I just that just like struck something for me. And again, Camille, I did ask you and Adriana to share with me, or share with us really, when you were talking, like how you said you had to kind of educate, what does that look like for you when you're educating others about what your experiences are?
Right. I think it's just super important, and kind of like Emily said, she took it upon herself to kind of dive in and do the research. And I always tell people, and not just my friends, your Black friend does not need to be your educator. You've got to do work for yourself. So like, I can't be the person that comes in and changes your mind about everything because I'm teaching you this, and that. Like, you know, we are literally going through this. We're moving through this world with all of these happening to us, to people we know, to our people as a whole. So I can't come and be your educator in all of this. And some people, I feel like, kind of lean to their Black friends, you know, well, what is this, or what does this mean, and how is that? And I don't mind having a conversation. I think we talked about that before. I can have a conversation. I think it's beauty in that. But then also I can tell you my experiences and what I think, and then you need to take what I've said and research. I had friends who did that. You know, they didn't know about Juneteenth. They didn't know about what that was. So we celebrated Juneteenth and, you know, got together. And I had friends that were like, wow, I didn't even know what that was. Well, they took that and they started to research and just came back to me and like, hey, I didn't know this happened, or I didn't know this. And it was beautiful that I didn't have to be the person to educate them on everything. So sharing the experiences, but then also reading, you know, if it's watching a video, if it's looking up something online, that's how I feel like you can educate yourself, and then matching that education with experiences from people that you know or don't know, for that matter. But it's kind of like a two-part: experiences and education, I think, goes hand in hand.
Awesome. Thank you, Adriana. I like that. And Camille, I'm going to come back to you because I want to get your input. We're going to actually still come back, everybody. This is Real Life Unplugged. We're having the discussion. Mama, when mothers answer the call. We're not here with the end all, be all, but we're definitely here to start the conversation. We appreciate everybody tuning in. We want to continue to be open. If you have any comments or any kind of feedback, please go ahead and like our video on YouTube. You can go to IJN Studios. You can come to our Facebook page at Real Life Unplugged on Facebook. But just go ahead and give us your feedback. You can even send us an email, our rlunplugged@gmail.com. We want to hear your voice. We want to hear your input. We definitely want to go ahead and have you to be a part of this conversation, because not only is it a necessary conversation, but it's one that's being had in some of our private corners. I'm your girl, Jae Hers. This is Real Life Unplugged, and I'll see you back here in just a moment.